All right, John. Good to have you on the show. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on, Daniel. Appreciate it. Good to see you.
Of course, mate. Of course. So we got a lot to get into. We want people to get up to speed on who you are and what Zaprite is, and then we can just see where it takes us. We'll get into the rabbit hole story, obviously, and what you're trying to achieve at Zaprite and all that. So why don't we go with yeah? Who are you, man? Like, where have you come from here?
Right, yeah. So I'm John McGill, from CEO of Zaprite, originally from Ireland. So born and raised in Ireland, lived pretty much most of my life there. And then basically after a while headed over to Canada, went and decided I need to go live in a ski resort somewhere because I got like obsessed with skiing. So I headed over there for 6 months on a work visa, and ended up staying there for 12 years. Um, and that's kind of where eventually where I obviously discovered Bitcoin and started working for Canadian Bitcoin companies and all that kind of stuff. And that's how Zaprite like evolved out of all of that. But
But
that's
what
pretty
what
much the
what
short
were you
short
doing?
version of my background.
Were you literally just doing the ski thing? Had you found a job skiing? Were you living the life?
Yeah, I went to art school in Ireland. So I did graphic design, art and design, and eventually, did a degree in multimedia design. So like a little bit of UI, UX and stuff like that. But very early days of the interwebs and kind of dating myself here at this stage. But it's yeah, I did that, and then pretty much straight out of college I went to become I did a job like in two or three different agencies in Dublin for a couple of years, but pretty much went straight out to be a freelance graphic designer, and eventually into web design a couple of years later. Just kind of taught myself HTML and CSS and stuff like that. Figured to be good skills to have, so kind of branched out and started offering that as well. And then eventually into UI UX stuff, pretty much like only about 4 or 5 years ago. And that's really when I started to work for Bitcoin companies, doing UI UX and stuff like that. And I can kind of go into that story as well about
That
chatting
definitely,
Francis and
because
Bitcoin. Yeah.
yeah, because a lot of the plebs out there, they want to find themselves a Bitcoin job, right? So it's always nice to hear from people that have made that switch. So how did that come about for you?
Yeah, that's a really good one. I like this story because I think hopefully it might inspire some other plebs who are on this like similar journey. Um, but I kind of found Bitcoin like in 2013. Originally, read an article somewhere, I can't remember, probably something about Mount Gox or Silk Road or something, and kind of thought like, oh, this is cool, this is interesting, and you know, downloaded Bitcoin, ran the software, like bought some Bitcoin. It was really hard to do in Canada. I think there's a place you could buy it with like $50 at a time on a debit card. So I was just buying it, and you had to wait 24 hours and buy more and buy more. But eventually I kind of just thought like, oh, it's a scam, I'm out of here, and then left it. And then like 2 or 3 years later, came back, read another article, kind of thought the same thing, but never put too much effort into it. And it was only really like in the whole 2017 kind of craziness, I got sucked up in all the ICO stuff as well. And that's really was my kind of like, really deep into the whole thing. And then obviously came out the other side of hard and Bitcoin Maxi in 2018. Um, and that's when I really kind of started looking into Bitcoin, really taking it seriously, figuring out what it was, figured like, okay, like this is it. This is more than just like funny internet money. Like this is pretty serious stuff here. Um, and always kind of thought like I gotta do something, like I gotta do something in the Bitcoin space, but didn't really know how. Like there wasn't a lot of consumer facing apps and things like that. There was a few, but there's certainly like a lot of it was just like developer heavy, right? Just like developer heavy stuff, which was amazing because that's obviously what Bitcoin needed at the time. But always in the back of my mind was like I gotta get involved somehow. Um, and then I think it was around 2019, maybe late 2018, early 2019. Um, I've been using Bull Bitcoin, Francis Pouliot's amazing, awesome company up in Canada for like years, just to buy Bitcoin. So I was a user theirs for ages, but their app, an absolutely amazing service, but their design like needed a lot of work. And as a designer, I was kind of looking at it going like, oh man, I can improve on this. So one weekend, I basically just took out my design software and like I redesigned the whole UI UX for Bull Bitcoin like over the weekend, and just DM'd Francis and said, hey, long time user, like love your product, but like, you know, here's some better designs. And he was just like, fuck, this is awesome. All right, let's go. Let's hire you. So that was how I actually got like a job in working for a Bitcoin company. It was kind of like my first, step across the door, I guess. Um, and then from that, obviously, like they were paying in Bitcoin, and I needed a Bitcoin invoice. They wanted like, you know, they're a proper legit company. They wanted an invoice, and I had to provide one. And I was running one of the original Casa node in a box. I don't know if you remember those if you were in that time, but like they were like the really kind of the first, you know, ones to come onto the market. And I had great fun playing around with that thing, but like trying to run BTC Pay server on that and expose URLs to the public, and you know, so people could like see those invoices and get them paid and stuff, like it was really, really tricky. And I was like a, you know, tech guy, so I was like, you know, other people are going to struggle with this. And so in the back of my mind, I had this idea, like I gotta build like a proper invoicing app that just like simplifies all of this stuff for the plebs. And so that idea was always in the back of my head. And then in 2020, I kind of just rolled up my sleeves and said, all right, this is the time. I got to start building. I got to start like doing this. So it was an evening hobby weekend like project for a while, until I eventually just kind of pushed it live, I think in early 2021 when I was still living up in Canada, just because I needed it. So I had to be live on a production server somewhere. So I just pushed it live. And then a couple of people just found it through word of mouth and started using it. And then eventually left Canada in September 21, moved down to Austin. And then, you know, Austin's just the place to be. And after that, like Zapbright kind of just like took off. So yeah, that's my intro story into working in the Bitcoin space. So I think it's there. It's possible for everybody.
Absolutely. And this is, I just did an episode with Ivan from Bulgaria, Naku 2000 on Twitter, who started working for Breeze around 4 to 6 months ago, doing the
Yeah.
same thing, just adding value where he knew he could, where his specific skill set plugged into something that he saw, hey, these guys need help. And a lot of people, I think, when we use this term build on Bitcoin, a lot of people, they default to this idea that, oh, I've got to be a software developer. There's no way I can build on Bitcoin. But like your UX, for example, is a perfect example. If you're using one of these apps and you see a problem with it, or not enough people are using it, then they have a marketing problem, right? So if you're in marketing or you understand sales, like there's a huge opportunity for you to add value to these companies. And there's a myriad of different things. Whatever you're doing in your fiat career, you've built up a unique skill set over time.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. And there's just, I mean, you know, I kind of touched on it before, but you know, maybe 4, 5, 6 years ago, there wasn't this myriad of roles available in Bitcoin companies. Now there is. Now there's just roles for like, you know, social media, marketing, like lawyers, like, you know, biz dev. Every single role is now available in Bitcoin companies somewhere. So, you know, just get yourself onto bitcoinerjobs.com and go. I hope that's the website.
Yep.
And go and go and search through and just keep looking out for stuff, because there's opportunities there, and it's such a just amazing, worthwhile industry to be in. You know, putting aside all of the, you know, number go up and all that kind of stuff. It's just there's some really cool stuff happening. Um, and being led by a lot of just really amazing, awesome people with just like such, you know, high caliber standards and characters, that it's just a great industry to be in all around.
So why the move down to Austin?
I had to get away from like, you know, commie Canada. I just
Right.
had to get out of there. It was they announced that they were going to bring in like the vax mandates, and I just couldn't stay. I was like, I was just going to become a second class citizen. I wasn't going to be allowed into coffee shops or restaurants or bars. Or I wasn't going to be allowed on buses or trains or to enter or leave the country past a certain date. And I just said, well, you know, I'm not going to stay here and pay taxes and put up with that. So I left. And the initial plan was to go down to El Salvador, Still haven't been down there yet, but the plan was to go down there and go to the 2021 conference. And I made it out of Canada down into the US. And Bitcoin Twitter, of course, was telling me to go to Austin. So that's where I landed first. And, the rest is history. I just never left. I just like got absorbed into that place and just all the amazing stuff that was happening down there. So never made it to El Salvador and was still there, like, almost a year and a half later in Austin. And just really glad I spent the time down there, because just absolutely amazing place with so many just phenomenal people doing great things.
Did those mandates ever actually come in?
Oh yeah, yeah.
They did. Like
Oh yeah,
100.
they did. Yeah, they came in on September 13th, 2021. I was gone out of there on September 10th, 2021.
And what's the landscape there now? Like that, has it all
I
kind
don't
of
think
been
they're there.
forgotten?
Yeah, I don't think they're there now. They dropped them. It's it's been forgotten by all the people who pushed it because they want to forget about it.
Mm.
The rest of us are not going to forget about it. But yeah, it's been, the mandates are obviously not there now. Everything kind of went back to normal at some stage. I can't remember how long it lasted. Like it was a good while though. It was a good long time. So like I said, I wasn't gonna stick around and pay my abusers. So I had to get out of there.
Oh man, it's crazy. Like looking back on it, yeah, we had the same here in France. They were threatening mandates and all that kind of stuff, but we had to have the QR code to get into a bar, restaurant, and cafe. And if you didn't have that, then you weren't getting on
Yeah.
public transport. Same thing.
Yeah.
And like, all right, where are we going? As soon as
Yeah.
those mandates come down, we're off. We're out of here because this is absolute insanity. And I remember thinking at the time, like these times throughout history, turning points, like Rosa Parks refusing
Yeah.
to move on the bus, and you
Mm-hmm.
think, fuck, man, at least she got on the bus.
Yeah.
Like we weren't even getting on the bus,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
and that was like, whoa, like this
Yeah.
is unbelievable. And like, yeah, like you referenced there, these people want to forgive and forget. Oh, it's time just to move on. Nobody really knew what was going on. It was a scary time. Like, no, motherfuckers, no, not
Yeah.
forgetting
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the minute we forget, like with the deeper we slide into the darkness.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. There's no forgetting it ever. Um, you know, Maybe there's forgiveness. I don't know, but there's certainly no forgetting it, because, like you said, if you forget, that's it. Like, it's game over. It just continues to happen again. Um, it's just bizarre what happened and how everybody just kind of, like, the vast majority of people just went along with it, and those of us in the minority who wanted to speak up were just completely, like, vilified. Um, Now, obviously, we've been proven right with everything that we were saying and the stances that we were taking, but unfortunately, the other side still thinks they're right, even in the face of all the evidence. I mean, I was just having conversations with some folks recently, and they were looking at me like I had two heads when I was telling them, like, all this stuff. They still believe that this is the way it is. This is the way it had to be. Everything was fine. So yeah, it's we need to just make sure that we continue to build the tools that we need to make sure that when these things happen in the future, people have options and they have escape hatches, because these things will continue to happen. They will only get worse. They will get more frequent. The restrictions will get heavier, and so we just need to build the tools so that we don't become victims to that stuff. Because if it happens again and you're not ready, then it's just your fault at that stage if you get hit a second time, right?
Yeah, mate. All right. So Austin, you land in Austin. Was it? I remember having huge FOMO watching Bitcoin Twitter and thinking, we're over here in Europe. France is going freaking crazy. Macron's saying the craziest fucking shit. Like Italy's good batshit crazy. Spain went batshit crazy. Like even Portugal, they're all still wearing masks when we visited there. Oh man, it was like way after. I'm like, what is going on here? And
Yeah.
everybody on Bitcoin Twitter, like, Austin's the place. We're all walking around, breathing fresh air, building Bitcoin companies. You had Unchained Capital there. You had the Bitcoin Commons there because Marty moved across. And it just felt like, well, what this utopia across on the West Coast. Was that the feeling you felt when you were there?
That's pretty much exactly what it was. That's pretty much exactly what it was. It was, especially moving from somewhere like Canada where, that was the vibe. Everybody was masked up. Like, it was nuts. Like, it was just this craziness that you can't even comprehend. And then you get off the plane in Austin and it's just like a different world. It's just like this thing doesn't even exist, or it people are kind of aware of it, but they just don't care. They're not they're not masked up. There obviously is some people who mask up, but nobody's enforcing anything. There's signs on doors, but you just walk in, nobody cares. Like it's just like the world kept going as normal and nobody really cared. People just had shit to do and they got on and they did it. And that's what I loved about it. It was just this, it felt like, it's crazy. It felt like this amazing freedom, like that, like freedom from restrictions that I had and seen and witnessed in Canada. And I had this like euphoric feeling of, oh wow, I'm free. This is amazing. Like, good on Austin, good on Texas. But then also this feeling of like, damn, what like this should be normal. Like, this should be normal. Like, why am I feeling like euphoric, like I've been set free? Like, this should be my day to day everywhere I go in the world, right? And it's kind of crazy that we had to seek out these small pockets of places that actually allowed us to still be free. So looking back on that whole time, like, it's really crazy how like how society reacted. But Austin was definitely definitely a good place during them times. Like, it was good to get down there and be able to meet like-minded people and not have to get sucked up in that whole conversation all the time, right? Because like Northland, everybody was just talking about like cases and like vax, all this kind of stuff. Whereas in Austin, we were just talking about how to build the next cool Bitcoin shit. Like, and it was amazing. Like, it was just a really, really good time. And I think I landed in a really good time as well in terms of I met again, just before I went down to Austin, I saw this conversation on Twitter between Kyle Murphy. And at the time, he was just some like random guy who was having trouble with like a hardware wallet and stuff like that. And he kind of like, he had a little tweet that went viral because he thought he lost all his Bitcoin, but eventually like he got it off some random hardware device. But he in September, in the middle of September, about the time that I was heading down, he was chatting to Francis Poulia online as well. It's just like kind of public back and forth thread where Francis was like, oh, the Bull Bitcoin team is going to move down to Austin in October. Like, we want a place to work out of. Like, where do we work from? And if there's not one available, we'll build it. And so Kyle Murphy just like responded and went, all right, I'll do it. Like, let's go. And he had been running Austin Bitcoin Club with like Cara Gonzalez and Keon from Stacker News as well for quite a while, couple of months, I think, at that stage. So they just kind of jumped in and said, all right, we're going to put together this like incubator, this like Bitcoin Lightning incubator co-working space in Austin. And so they started Pleb Lab. And literally it was that week that I got down, and I ended up just DMing Kyle and saying like, hey, I'm coming down to Austin, just some random guys coming down, like let's meet, grab some tacos and the beer and have a chat. And so we did. And he ended up offering, Zaporite the first desk in this like co-working space in Pleb Lab in Austin. So I was just like kind of, oh my God, this is amazing. Like, I've just hit the jackpot here. I've just like randomly come down from Canada, met these guys, and already I've got a co-working desk. And I ended up in this like small little office with like only about 10 or 12 of us. And just amazing people like, Ben Carmen and Tony and all the boys from that are now doing Mutiny. Paul at Voltage at the time. There was Sam from, Hoseki, whole bunch of people in there, like bunch of the Bull Bitcoin guys were there for a while. Just a really great crew of people, and Super Testnet and a whole bunch of others, like all just crammed into this little room building like really cool shit for like, 6 months or something, until we eventually got like our own space in Austin. And just looking at that history of what Pleb Lab has become like over the last year or two is amazing. Kyle, Keon, and Cara at the time just did a phenomenal job to get that off the ground and get people like pulled into Austin, like, and into that ecosystem. And Carr now, I think is running on his own. And he's just doing an amazing job. Like, just to see the workshops, the education, the events, the hackathons, everything that goes on down there. Just massive shout out to Carr. Like, he's working like crazy to make sure that that place is still going and is producing some like really amazing developers and community events. And it's just like a beacon for Bitcoiners who want to go down to Austin. So I'd say if you're heading down that direction, make sure you check out Pleb Lab. And obviously we got Bitcoin Commons as well in the Unchained office space. A great, two amazing places for Bitcoiners to head down to.
Yeah, I remember having Kyle on the show, full of energy, full
Yeah.
of integrity as well, ex-military, if I remember correctly.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah, great guy, awesome guy. Like, just I met such a cool group of amazing people when I went down there. Like, I think I've just like formed friendships for life from the people I've met down there, which is amazing. I mean, we all, we all like to hang around with Bitcoiners because we're just on that same level, and there's no small talk. We're just straight into, like, you feel like you've known this person. Like, but when you really kind of get into a tight space and you kind of live and work with people for, like, an extended period of time, you really kind of get to know, obviously them on a more intimate level. And I feel like a lot of that happened in, the last kind of like 2 years or so down in Austin. Like, it was just a lot of friendships formed, a lot of businesses formed, like a lot of deals done, like a lot of amazing things, happened, a lot of, like, amazing lines of code written. Like, it was just really, really just a special time. And I was glad to be able to be part of it for, at least a year and a half. And maybe more. I mean, I'm back in Ireland right now, but I might head back over to Austin. We gotta see how things work out.
all right. So yeah, what prompted that shift then away from Austin and back to Ireland?
So I was applying for a work visa in the US. I wanted to stay permanently because I'd just been down there on I'm a dual Canadian citizen. I got Canadian citizenship as well. So I was just using that passport to go into the US. We get 6 months on Canadians get 6 months on their passport on a tourist visa, whereas on my Irish I would have just got like 90 days or whatever. So I just went in for 6 months and then I rolled it over for another 6 months, and then I applied for a work visa. And while that application was in, I could stay in the country. So I ended up being there like, over a year. And then the work visa got rejected. And I had to like hightail it out of the country like really fast because I was in like illegal status at that stage. And I had to like basically just book the next flight and like get the hell out of there. So I had to leave Austin in a hurry. Like, I had an apartment lease and everything. And I was just like, all right, I gotta run. So I just went back up to Vancouver and hung out in Vancouver for a while, and then eventually back to Ireland. And I applied again for the exact same visa, but just through the US Embassy in Dublin. And that took about 7 or 8 months, but I eventually got that in the middle of this year. So I have that visa and I can go back if I want. But just in the time that I've been back in Ireland, like, I haven't lived here in 14 years, and I kind of came back, and there's like nieces and nephews and family I haven't seen in a long time. Especially after being, not seeing everybody for 4 years over the whole, like, COVID stuff as well. So spending that extended time here that I didn't think I was going to be here for just kind of like made me kind of fall in love with Ireland a little bit all over again. And so now I'm just kind of hanging out here, like enjoying being here with family and friends again and stuff. So, but still kind of trying to figure out where exactly I'm going to like plant roots. So there's a lot of options for Bitcoiners these days. There's Portugal, Madeira. There's like, Austin. Obviously, like, there's some cool spots.
El Salvador as well.
El Salvador, of course. Yeah, how could I forget El Salvador? Yeah, yeah,
Although
amazing.
a little bit odd with the give us $1 million and we'll give you a citizenship or something like that. I saw that drop last week. I'm like, huh?
Is that what it is? I haven't been keeping up with that
Yeah.
lately, but
Katie the
that's
Russian did a breakdown of it. So you'll be able to
okay.
find her on Twitter and watch her breakdown. It's it's an odd one. An odd one.
Yeah.
Anyway, so all right. Do you know why you were rejected that first time?
Yeah, it was just a whole load of nonsense. Absolute nonsense. Yeah, it was just bureaucrats doing stupid bureaucratic shit. Like, um I was applying through Zapright, and I was applying for something called the investor visa. So if you either, yeah, you basically have to invest in a company, either new or existing. and then you can get in that way. And there's a couple of different criteria that you have to meet. Like, you can't just throw money in. There's a couple of different things that have to be in place. And so obviously the fact that I had Zaprite and started my own company meant I could invest in that myself. I could put my own money into my own company, and then I could show that, like, you know, it was being used to develop the company and stuff. And so they basically rejected it because they said, what was the two things? One was, I don't have any employees. Like, I'm not paying any employees, and I don't have any income. The business is not making any income because I wasn't charging for users, right? But neither of those things are required. They just basically said, like, no, you're not doing those things. You don't meet the criteria. And so, like, you know, I had a lawyer, I'm paying a lawyer like 5 figures to get all this done. And he wrote back and he's like, well, according to like this, and this, you don't have to have these. And they just went like, tough, decision made. So basically I had to go back to Ireland. We resubmitted the exact same application again. And they just went, yeah, no problem.
Oh,
So
man.
just absolute, like, you know, just government, basically, right? You're dealing with government. They don't know their ass from their elbow. But that's, you know, that's how it was. So I had to go through that extended period and pay more money and deal with more lawyers and all that stuff, when it could have just literally gone, you know, it could have taken 4 weeks. It should have been decision made, all done in 4 weeks while I was still in the US, and I could have just rolled over the visa and I wouldn't even have had to have left. Instead, it took probably close to a year altogether. And like I said, 5 figures and just absolute, like, nonsense. Just
Unbelievable.
some pencil pusher behind the desk didn't understand their own laws and immigration laws and rules.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, man. All right. Okay. So what's the pleb scene like in Ireland? Because that must have been completely different coming from Austin, where you were surrounded by plebs the whole time, to get to Ireland. Was it pretty scarce? Did you find some meetups? Have you managed to find some other guys to like lean on?
Yeah, eventually, yeah, it was very scarce though, for sure. When I knew I was coming back to Ireland, I Googled like crazy to try and find Irish Bitcoin scene. And there was nothing. Like, there was nothing. There was a guy who had done a conference like the year before, I think, or maybe the year before that. I'm not sure. Like, but it wasn't big. I think it was the first time, but there wasn't any regular meetups. And there was just, like, if you Google anything like in Ireland, it's just all blockchain and crypto and DeFi and garbage. Like, it's huge. It's massive here. Um, well, maybe not massive, but like certainly bigger than the non-existent Bitcoin scene at the time. And this was the end of last year. And then in January of this year, some random guy in Dublin was obviously feeling the same way. And so he basically just threw a tweet up and said, all right, I'm sick of this. There's no Bitcoin meetups. Like, I'm going to start one. And so I saw that and I immediately DM'd him and I said, all right, love this. Let's go. I'm going to give you, like, you know, Bitcoin. I'm going to sponsor you every month, give you Bitcoin to do this. Like, send me a Zaprite invoice for a sponsorship. I'll sponsor you. Let's get the meetup going. And the guy is like, this was like Gary from Dublin Bitcoiners. And like, he's kind of looking at his phone, sitting beside his wife, going, I think some guy's trying to scam me. He's saying he's going to send me Bitcoin. I don't know what to do here. But it was great. Like, Gary's an awesome guy. He puts a lot of effort into the meetups. He's put a lot of effort into Orange Pill and local businesses, getting people on board. He owns a couple of businesses himself in Dublin, so he runs the meetup out of it. He runs a coffee shop stuff as well. His sister and family and stuff have a few businesses, so they're all kind of orange pilled. And so this was his kind of, he just wanted to like get everything off the ground and get the Bitcoin scene, a little bit more active in Ireland, in Dublin. And so that's what he did. And then there's another guy, Dinny, who runs a consulting business. And he was running the Bitcoin Ireland conference, which we did in May of this year, and Zaprite sponsored that again. So that was great. That was a fairly decent sized event, and I think that's going to run again in May of next year. I think they've just started talking about tickets and stuff like that as well. So yeah, it's definitely it's definitely bigger than what it was 12 months ago for sure. And I think a lot of that is down to Gary at Dublin Bitcoiners and a couple of other folks as well who really put in the effort to kind of promote Bitcoin within Ireland, which because unfortunately didn't exist until that point.
Which brings us back to our original start point here, like building on Bitcoin, right? Starting a regular Bitcoin meetup is building on Bitcoin. You don't have to be a software developer, and just by putting yourself out there, look what happened. He had a guy in his DMs offering to help put some money behind the bar within 10 minutes. This is something we want to do at Orange Pill app actually going forward next year.
Yeah.
Is to help champion those people that are putting together the meetups. Like, so be the right, okay, here's a new meetup, we're going to start it, and Orange Pill app can say, right, we've got a kit, this is what you need, this is how you do it, here are some books to give away, here's some money to put behind the bar. It's just small stuff, but people that take that first step, they just need that confidence that someone's behind them and they are actually onto something, rather than just being a lonely loner sitting in the corner of the bar with a pint, like, oh, no one came.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's that's it exactly. And I think I think you hit the nail on the head there, saying like starting a meetup is building on Bitcoin. And one of the things that I've been very vocal about for the last like 2 years or more, since going down to Austin and seeing the direct benefits of what just showing up provides. Like, just show up, like go to your local meetup if there isn't one, start it, because the amount of connections you make and the amount of opportunities that will present themselves by literally just showing up. It's just proof of work, right? You literally just got to like get off your ass, get out the door and go to your local meetup. If you don't have one, start one. And that will basically spread from there. And what's the worst thing that can happen? You end up having a couple of beers with a few like-minded people. You make some new friends. Like, there's nothing to be lost from doing something like this. And so I think we're starting to see that in Ireland as well. Like, there's another meetup that started in Limerick. There's a Bitcoin company I met the founders of a couple of months ago who are starting. They're based in Kilkenny. And there's a couple of other Bitcoin meetups as well. I think there's one in Offaly as well, starting up. So we're starting to see now these little meetups springing up, and they might only be 4 or 5 people meeting up for beers, but eventually they grow. In the Dublin meetup now, we're seeing like 25, 30 people. So that's great. And it just grows from there. So yeah, absolutely. Building on Bitcoin doesn't have to be just writing code and reviewing PRs and all that kind of stuff. There's just, every opportunity imaginable is there right now. You just got to be creative about it, or stick to the easy, tried and trusted, go to your local meetup. Easy.
So, Zaprite, mate, you had the idea, like you said, way back when. Now it's obviously a fully functioning product. Happy user myself. I've been testing it out, as you know, and think it's shill it. Like, what's the problem you're trying to solve, and what's the 10-year kind of runway plan looking like?
Yeah, exactly. So at a very basic level, what we're trying to solve is just to make it extremely easy for businesses to accept Bitcoin payments. We want to just like make tools that make it so easy for businesses to get Bitcoin onto their balance sheet and hold the treasury in Bitcoin, because that's really what it's all about. And at a very basic level, that started, as I mentioned before, with the invoicing side of it, which is I needed to build a product where I could send an invoice, and I didn't have to like worry about like talking to like the bull Bitcoin guys on the other end and picking up the phone and being, okay, you're about to pay it now. All right, well, like, let's look at the rate and see what the rate is. And like, let's negotiate. Like, no, it was simple. I just connect my own self-custody wallet. We generate addresses, put it on the invoice and send it off. And whenever it gets paid, we do all of the hosted checkout, like UI interface stuff. We get the live rate. We derive the address off the Xpub, create the QR code. It gets paid. We watch it in the mempool. We send out the notification emails. We stamp it in the database. And now we have a full transaction history that you can export CSV to your account and then everything like that. So that's like the basic product that Zaprite started off, because obviously I needed that myself. And then in August of this year at BitBlock Boom, we announced the second kind of major feature, which was payment links. So these are very similar to what people might be familiar with Stripe and things like that, where you can basically just create a product that gets its own unique payment link. You advertise that anywhere you want. You drop a little HTML button on your website, or you drop a link in a newsletter or whatever. You just link to it from like any website, and you now have your own hosted checkout. So basically you can brand your ZapRight checkout any way you want, put in your logo, your CSS colors, like any of that kind of stuff. And now you have your own hosted checkout where you can take payments for selling books, selling tickets, like whatever it might be. So the invoices are obviously, you're creating one invoice that's going to be sent to one person, paid once, and then it's done. The payment links can obviously be purchased over and over and over again. So they're good for things like digital downloads and physical products and stuff like that. So that's the kind of the major feature that was launched in August, which came a couple of months after Parker and Will joined, which was, that's another whole story in itself, which we can talk about, because that, again, is just like I attribute a lot of that to me just getting down to Austin and showing up every day and sitting there, like working away on my laptop, getting to know the guys, seeing them every day, seeing them at the Bit Devs meetup, like, getting to know Parker, chatting to him about ZapRight every couple of weeks. And then when Parker and Will left Unchained in their full-time roles at the end of last year, Parker stayed on a board position, and Will, I think, is still involved with the product team there. They were looking for something to do, and they wanted to start, they didn't want to do custody because that's what they'd been in with Unchained. They didn't want to do anything on the wallet side or hardware side or anything. And I think Parker was experiencing the same kind of issues that I had been experiencing earlier. Was just like, it's really hard to just basically get someone to pay you directly into your own self-custody wallet. And so, these guys were thinking about this whole like payment product that they wanted to build. And the more they kind of asked around and spoke around in Austin, everybody was like, well, John's building that, like, go talk to John. So we eventually just started chatting and had a conversation. And obviously the guys were like, well, look, your vision and what you're doing and what you've already done is a huge chunk of where we wanted to go with our company. So like, let's just join ZapRight. So that was amazing. Like to have, those two guys, hit me up and say, we want to join your company is like pretty phenomenal thing to happen to some random guy who just started a little Bitcoin startup, and came down to Austin. So again, that's just, like I said, proof of work. You put in the work, you get down there, you get to the meetups, you start networking, you meet people, and things will happen. But yeah, I mean, in terms of ZapRight, like that was a huge lift, obviously getting those guys on board. Parker obviously as head of business development and Will as head of product. I think the combination there is just exactly what ZapRight needed at the time. I'd been down in Austin for, like I said, like over a year at that stage. The product had kind of, I wouldn't say exactly we had product market fit, but like there was a use case obviously for it. People were using it. It was starting to grow and there was attention on it. And so it really needed kind of, somebody who knew what they were doing to come in and kind of help me take it to that next level. And obviously having someone like Parker and Will come in to be those people to do that was just, amazing. So it obviously gave ZapRight a big lift, a huge lift. It got a lot of attention. And, together, the three of us, as well as our devs and stuff, we got a full-time dev in France, actually, and another in Austin. Contractors at the moment who are basically just like cranking out features like amazingly fast and doing phenomenal work. So it's a very small team, but we're just getting a lot of stuff done right now, which is great, because we did spend it probably about, I'd say, the guts of 8 months rebuilding the whole app in the lead up to April of this year. We basically started September last year, end of August, start of September, all the way up to early April this year, when we kind of relaunch mightn't be the right word, but basically like we kind of refactored all the code underneath, rebuilt the whole thing so that we could run our own Postgres database. So we weren't running on Google Cloud anymore, because that was one of the big things. I wanted to get off Google Cloud database and run our own database. So we did a lot of stuff, refactoring the plugin section as well, because, something that I maybe haven't, spent a lot of time talking about on this pod yet, but like the whole idea behind ZapRight is we're wallet agnostic. You can come to us literally with any wallet and plug it in, whether it's custodial, non-custodial, on-chain, Lightning, multi-sig, like whatever it is, we'll provide all of these connectors. So really what we're doing is we're just building this piping to allow anybody to come in, plug any wallet they want, and then configure and build their own hosted checkout to take their payments, and the payments flow to wherever it is they want them to be routed. And I think that's the real beauty of ZapRight, is to be able to provide those tools, those merchant tools, without somebody having to run the server themselves. We touched on BTC Pay Server earlier. It's an amazing product. Like I love it. But you got to be a bit technical to run it, and you got to run your own server. But amazing, cypherpunk self-custody, like, be your own bank, like, that's what everybody should be using. Hopefully everybody will be using something like that in future. But the other end of the scale, then you got something like OpenNode or BitPay, which again runs all the infrastructure for you. You don't need to worry about anything, but they custody your funds. They charge you 1% to 2% on transactions and withdrawals and everything. It's full KYC, all that kind of stuff. Again, good product, serve a purpose, but like where ZapRight sits is in that sweet spot in the middle, where we give you that self-sovereignty, where you plug your own wallets in. We don't touch the money at all. We're not a payment processor. It gets directly routed into your own wallets or your own node, whatever you have connected. But you're just allowing us to run the server for you. So we're providing the UI UX wrappers. We provide the hosted checkouts, the payment links, the invoicing, everything like that. So I think we've got like a real kind of good, solid product to develop from. And obviously over time, we'll just keep iterating on that and adding in more connections, more features to the invoicing and payment links. Really with that, like I said, that underlying goal of making it easy for businesses to accept business and accept Bitcoin and get it on their balance sheet. Because ultimately, Parker talks about this a lot. Ultimately, that's really where the Bitcoin, payment sector has to start, is with merchants accepting it. We got to convince Bitcoiners to spend it as well. But if the merchants aren't accepting it, then, the Bitcoiners can't spend it. So it really starts with building those tools. And that's what we hope to do at ZapRight.
Yeah, for sure. It's chicken and egg, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
And let's look at two scenarios. Pleb podcaster gets a few interested supporters of the show, then has to manually like type out some kind of invoice because the show support needs that invoice to show, blah, blah, blah. It's a pain in the ass. Now you can just open ZapRight. You do that template once. You connect your wallet to it once, and you can just send it out at the end of each month, and you get notified each time that transaction clears. It's so simple. That's one end of the scale. Then the other end of the scale, which we've got to be, this is what I believe that you guys are building for over the next 10 years. The next big merchant announced that they're going to start taking Bitcoin on their balance sheet. They've watched the hope.com videos. They've been to the MicroStrategy World conferences and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, right, okay, yeah, we're convinced. Where's the tools for invoicing? Like, this is ridiculous. We can't just suddenly, oh, hang on a minute. Yes, we can.
Yeah.
We just plug in ZapRight. Is that it? Like, and now we can start invoicing people in Bitcoin. And yeah, greasing those wheels early is going to be huge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. The market is inevitably moving in that direction. We all know that as Bitcoiners. We know what direction it's going to go in. It obviously is a smaller niche market now, but obviously growing, at a rapid pace. And, with the halving and everything coming up, and inflation and all the marketing the governments around the world are doing for us, that's obviously just going to keep accelerating. And more people are going to want to accept Bitcoin, especially when there's the current financial system is just obviously getting restricted like over time. And so in order for most people to actually get their hands on Bitcoin, it's going to be such a laborious process to go through these KYC processes and connect up with an exchange and give them all your information and get verified just so you can buy a little bit of Bitcoin and do that. I think earning Bitcoin and getting paid in Bitcoin is really going to be the future. Like that's how a lot of people are going to actually get their Bitcoin in the future. And particularly businesses, like it just makes absolute sense for businesses. Um, if you're going to, if you're a business and like you said, you've watched all the MicroStrategy videos, you've made the decision, you want to get Bitcoin on your balance sheet. You've made that balance sheet decision. So now your options are go to the exchange and buy the Bitcoin or accept the Bitcoin as payments, or both, obviously. But accepting the Bitcoin in payments seems to be just like an obvious no-brainer. Like you want to do that. If you want Bitcoin on your balance sheet, you want to start accepting it. So as a business, whether you're like, we're seeing doctors, dentists, like non-Bitcoin specific companies now making that decision that, hey, we realize what Bitcoin is. We want to offer that to our users, not just because, hey, it's great, we might get some more users, but because we as a business actually want it on our balance sheet. And so now they start looking for the tools where they can actually do that. And that's where ZapRight shines, right? Because we have this one unified checkout where you can connect a Stripe account if you want for your credit card payments. And then you connect your on-chain wallet with an Xpug or whatever. And then maybe you want to use Strike or something for your liquidity because you don't want to run your liquidity yourself for Lightning. So now you have this one unified checkout where you send that to your customer and they see the three options: pay on-chain, pay Lightning, pay credit card. Now we actually have this feature where you can actually attach a premium onto that credit card payment. So you can start persuading your users like, hey, I'm going to save like 10% if I pay in Bitcoin or Lightning or whatever. And now you can actually just get that messaging in front of them saying, hey, this is our preferred payment method. We'll incentivize you to pay us in this payment method. But now we can do it all through this one unified checkout. We don't have to say like, click this button to go over here and pay through our Stripe form, and then click this button to go over here and pay like our Bitcoin address. And we can just do it all in one, like I said, hosted branded checkout. And I think that's powerful for users to be able to, or for businesses to be able to do that in one spot.
Excellent. And as Lauren walked in the door and then walked back out, she's keeping us waiting here. Keeping us hanging. I can hear she's just saying goodbye to her French teacher. So she'll be down in a second.
Nice.
Yep, here she is. Right. Oh, yeah.
Hey, Lauren, how are you?
Hi.
How are you?
Okay.
No, you have a question.
Yeah, that I remember.
Yeah, go.
What is accounting?
What is accounting? Okay, well, I think you're gonna stump me on that one. Okay, so accounting is when you're running a business, you've got income and you've got expenses. So income is all the money that you're getting in through sales or any other channels, and your expenses are obviously anything that you're paying. You might be paying for goods or services or goods that you're selling, or you might be paying contractors or staff wages and stuff like that as well. The cost of goods to actually get those goods or services to the consumer. And then you got a couple of other categories, like you've got long-term kind of assets and liabilities as well, and they all kind of blend together into your accounting, which gives you your overall view of how your business is performing. Over time, you can see, are your liabilities increasing? Do you owe more money than the assets that you have or the treasury that you have on reserve? And so obviously as Bitcoiners, we want to encourage more people to take Bitcoin onto their balance sheet so that their Bitcoin treasury can grow over time, and so that they now become a much more healthy business because their assets, their Bitcoin treasury keeps growing, and it can outperform cash over the longer term. So I hope that answered the accounting question.
Does that make sense? Let's give you an example.
So like,
okay, go on.
So you keep your money in check? Is that it?
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's checks and balances on your money. You want to make sure that you're not spending more than you're earning. And so it's basically, as individuals, we do this too. We run personal budgets so that we know how much money we're spending out every month, and then we can see how much money is coming in. So we're keeping our money in check on a personal level by running these day-to-day or month-to-month budgets. And a business is obviously the same, just on a bit bigger, more complex level. But I love that. I love the way you phrase that. You're keeping check on your money. That's it. It's awesome.
So John's building a company to help those Bitcoin companies out there be able to accept Bitcoin and keep a check on it.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. There you
That's
go.
cool.
All right. Well, thank you for your question.
Yeah,
Thanks for
so
coming down.
much. Thank you. Thank you. Good luck. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Thank you. Take care.
So very pertinent question, and something you guys in-house, I'm sure, have had many a conversation about, because this is a possible speed bump for the adoption of your service. When people are sending out invoices, how quick does that invoice hit? And what if we are in a current fee environment like we're in now, where we're being spammed to all hell by two certain individuals that nobody ever really wants to mention, but we know what they're doing? And the classic thing is here, it seems to me, I hope this is what they're doing. I think they're using venture capital money to do this as well, which is just insanity. I think.
Yeah, it's absolutely nuts. I'll be honest, I haven't like dove too deeply into this stuff. I just know from the very start that this is not. It's not. I mean, people talk about whether it's good for Bitcoin or it's bad for Bitcoin, and if it's just a valid transaction, it's fine. And if Bitcoin allows this to happen, then it should be allowed to happen, and nobody can stop it, and free market, all that kind of stuff. I agree with that. I'm like, okay, fine. Like, there's nothing we can do about it. It's a valid Bitcoin transaction, but there's a moral aspect to it. And one of the things that I've like become very, very vocal and strongly opinionated about over the last few years is the moral aspect of Bitcoin. I think the world is on a very, very bad path under central banks. I think they just, they're increasing just the wars, the poverty, the boom bust cycles, everything that is wrong with current society, especially since we came off the gold standard in 1971, is all just, increasing at a rapid pace. And Bitcoin is probably our only hope out of all of that. And so if you're somebody who's messing around with monkey JPEGs because hey, I can, then sure, you're putting a valid transaction through the Bitcoin blockchain, but you're also running interference on humanity's progression. Let's be honest about what you're doing. You're basically putting a barrier in front of society progressing onto a higher level where we can all benefit. We can all lift ourselves out of this daily grind of living our life in a deficit where we just cannot get out of this spin, this loop where your inflation is increasing, your bills increasing. Everybody, we all know about what's happening right now. And so yeah, for me, it's more of a moral thing than anything else. I don't really want to debate the technical side of it because A, I don't know enough about it, but B, I don't think it matters. It's a valid transaction. Nothing we can do about it right now until we come out with some kind of a fix, if that even is the way to go. I read Ben Carman's article there yesterday, I think, or whenever it was it came out, where he was saying the current proposed fixes are worse than the problem. I don't know how that side of it is going to go, but for me, it's very much a moral thing for sure. And that, I think, kind of going back to your point, ties in with that. I think there is VC money propping this up. No doubt. I mean, there's certainly VC money there, and if that's the whole idea behind it, that's just, there's all sorts of different people in the world. I think we've just met, a few people who just don't have morals. That's really what it all boils down to. And And it's sad to see because, you know, there's a beautiful, bright orange future ahead. I'm like so unbelievably optimistic about the future. But unfortunately, we're just getting thrown these hurdles by, you know, weak charactered people who, you know, don't really understand the bigger picture.
Mm-hmm. And an anecdotal story just to add. Last week, we have a pleb math teacher, great guy, big shout out, Andy, lives down in Cornwall, and ex high school teacher, saw through the system. Like, I do not want to be a part of this anymore because I'm doing more damage to kids than actually helping them, right? In that scenario whereby you're just cramming 30 kids in, you know, 6 different classes per day, just this mill of uninterested, like poor little cattle, basically coming into your classroom uninspired. He's like, no more, I'm out. So he's doing his own thing, gone solo freelancing contract, and accepts Bitcoin. Great guy. And I had some lessons to pay, and I had booked up for Sophia, my 16-year-old, to join a block. So he's running different blocks in January. So we're looking at, like, I don't know, whatever. We decided, let's do an on-chain transaction for this one. And at the time, mempool was like, I can't remember, 20, 25 sats per VByte or something. Wake up the next morning and he's like, yeah, that didn't clear. I'm like, huh? So I checked the mempool, it's like 250. I'm like, these motherfuckers are at it again.
Yeah.
So he's taken a week to 10 days for that just to bounce around in the mempool. It never got purged. It just kept bouncing around, just hanging in there. Is that fair? Is that fair that, like, this guy who'd given up his time, energy, and effort, and he's taken a punt on life to be waiting for that transaction, which should have taken anywhere within 10 minutes to an hour, which took over a week because, like you said, some guys with questionable, you know, morals or ethics are screwing around with monkey JPEGs on the, like, yeah, exactly. What are we doing here? Like, you know,
Yeah.
how are we going to evolve if this kind of nonsense keeps coming up? And yes, I do ascribe to the fact that, yeah, it is going to make us ultimately stronger, and it will get washed out, and it just be like the block size wars. We'll probably get to like the precipice of something, and then boom, there will be. So it is pushing people to think harder and faster and stronger around solving this problem, but it's going to linger. You know, this doesn't get solved in a year or two, probably.
Yeah. I mean, that's it. It's, I mean, if, you know, if Bitcoin goes the way we all think it will, block space is going to be extremely limited. It's going to, you know, there'll be an auction for the block space like there is every 10 minutes, and fees will be consistently high. We know that. And maybe at that point, it's, you know, it's only much larger transactions settled between entities that are using it, and then we're all on like second and third layers or whatever it might be. However that plays out, and that's okay. We're all fine with that. We understand where that's going. But in the meantime, right now, we need these lower fees to be able to get people using Bitcoin and get people understanding what it is and get small businesses and plebs using, because that's how it starts, right? So if you've got these guys that are coming in and just jamming up those blocks and like you're firing up fees, it's just a disruption. It's not proving anything. It's not trying to show people like, well, hey, fees are going to be high. We're just trying to show you what it's going to be like. It's like, yeah, fuck, we get it. We know that. That's going to happen. But stop with this childish like nonsense of, you know, JPEGs on the block. I can't, my mind just can't comprehend how these idiots think. Like, it's just, I mean, like, yeah, it's just bizarre. It's just bizarre. And the whole, like, you know, ordinals, inscriptions, like, I mean, when I heard about that initially, I mean, my original take on it was just the same take as I have now. Like, it's dumb, it's stupid. Like, you know, ordinals, like, what, you're tracking every sat. Why? So that you can ascribe it to, like, you know, oh, well, this is like from Satoshi's, like from the first Coinbase, or oh, this one is attached to this monkey JPEG, or like, like who cares? Like literally, who cares? You know what I mean? Like we're building something that is representative of our time and energy. We're not trying to build something that is representative of some like imagination about like what like a Satoshi is worth or what a like monkey JPEG is worth. And I mean that should be obvious to anybody who's like in this game long enough. And these guys that you mentioned, like they are in the game long enough. So they definitely have ulterior motives. Like this is not this is not some noble thing that they're trying to do to help save Bitcoin. It's an attack. It's a direct attack. And we have to recognize it for what it is. Now, like I said, and like you mentioned before, Bitcoin will survive. It's fine. It's, if it can't survive this attack, then we're in trouble. But it would just be nice that we don't have, so-called members of our own team disrupting our processes while we try to bring Bitcoin to the world. That's the unfortunate part about it.
Yep. Well, as I mean, you've already touched on this. You're fully set up for layer 2 solutions already anyway, so it's not something that's probably going to affect you guys going forward. It's just how do we get that education across to the merchants when they come? I mean, obviously you're going to learn by doing, and mistakes will be made, but having the tools in place, having the education in place, conversations like this, we need more of them. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, yeah, like you mentioned, like we have Lightning in there, whether you're connecting your own like LND node, your Umbrel or Start9 or whatever, or you're connecting something like, Strike or whatever that runs the liquidity for you. We've got all the options in there. We also have Liquid. Liquid is one of those things that doesn't get used a lot until environments like now, when everybody starts talking about Liquid again. And I see there's a lot of chatter about Liquid like over the last few days again. So, we're obviously going to like look at all of that stuff and bring those options in, because there's a lot of cool stuff that's happening, particularly with like, Liquid Lightning swaps and stuff like that as well. So if we can add a lot of that value where, in times of high fee environments, we have all the other options as well, then yeah, we'll consistently look at those stuff. And there's a lot of stuff like that we have on the roadmap. And that's the beauty of our system and our software and our hosted checkout, is the ability to quickly like switch on and off different payment methods. So that's really, I think, where we're actually going to be able to shine, is when when fees are high, you might, pull off your on-chain address from your invoices and force people to do Liquid or Lightning, or at least give options. But if we're there and we can make it as simple as one click, then, I think we've got something there that users will really kind of gravitate towards and will really love using for the simplicity, ease of use. And so, yeah, a lot of that stuff we'll keep looking at, a lot of layer 2 stuff. Because I think it can only help in the long run.
For sure, man. All right. Well, let's wrap it up. Final question. If you had one last orange pill left to give to somebody, who would you give it to and why?
Oh, man. I think I'd probably have to say there's a friend of mine who I've been trying the orange pill for like years, absolute years. And he just, like, he's a smart enough guy that he like, sometimes he'll ask the right questions, but then he always just falls back to like default, like, fiat Keynesian methodology. So I think if I could basically just give him that orange pill and get him over the hump, like absolutely, that would be it. It was just like they're sometimes the most frustrating ones is the people that are like close to you in your life that you're just trying to get done.
Those people that you should get it. You're like, but like everything you say and your whole career, like, like this is just a plug-in. No. Like what? Where am I missing this?
Yeah. And this guy, he's like, one of the things he likes saying to me is when I keep trying to like convince him that Bitcoin is going to be the money of the future and the payment system of the future, and he's like, oh, well, if that's the case, I'll just wait till my company starts paying me in Bitcoin and I'll take it. And I'm like, but you can get some now and retire. It's like, what? Like, I don't understand. Like, that's just
All
but
right,
I'm
I've got one for him.
yeah,
Bitwage. He can get paid now, but just by using Bitwage. He just sets up an account with Bitwage, and
yeah, yeah, yeah,
when like the pounds or the euros hit his account, 10%, 20%, 25%, whatever he decides, gets
yeah.
switched into Bitcoin and sent to him.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't even think he'd go for that at this stage. Yeah,
Yeah.
great option, but I think he's just like he doesn't even want to get Bitcoin at this stage. Yeah, yeah. But it's I mean, I've gotten to the stage where um like I used to try and orange pill everybody and anybody. Like, you're that eager Bitcoiner at the start, and you're just like everybody you talk to, everybody you meet in the pub is like, have you heard about Bitcoin? Now I kind of just I don't bother. I conserve my energy just to the people I care about, the people I love in my close circle, like family and friends. Like I really just try and put the effort into them. Um, like even my dad, like I think my like he's definitely gets it now. Like he definitely does. Like I got him to buy some like on Coinbase like back in 2016 or 17 or something. So he has like a tiny amount, but he's seen it grow over that time. And now he's just constantly asking questions about, well, the Irish banks are not giving us any interest. Like my money's just sitting there, like melting away. Like, what can I do? Like, John, do you think if it's okay if I like, what do you think about this bank in Europe or this bank here? They're offering 3.5 and this bank is offering 4%. And I'm like, Dad, take it like 5 or 10% and buy Bitcoin. Like it's money that's just sitting there in your account. You're not going to need it. Like, what's the worst case scenario? That 5% disappears overnight. Bitcoin goes to zero. You'll have lost that in the bank anyway over like a couple of years. So just like, and I think now he gets it, and now he's like, okay, so like, where can I buy some Bitcoin? So like, we're starting to have those conversations. So like, this is great. Like, I think that's where I would rather focus my energy. Yeah, there's too much to do, so you need to be very specific on who you give your time and energy to on Bitcoin these days.
Yeah. I still ask at point of sale every time I'm buying something.
That's
Do you
fair. I like
accept
that one. Yeah,
do you
yeah,
accept Bitcoin? I mean, it's 4 words, right? Like
yeah,
that's
yeah.
and it's always a no. It's like, oh, okay, never mind. But I've got that little sleeve now, by the Bridge to Bitcoin guys.
Mm,
I don't know if you've
mm,
seen them. You just slip inside your normal payment card. So
yeah,
if you don't have cash, you're not using cash, and you do have to use like the sound contactless card.
yeah.
It's got a little Bitcoin sleeve on it. It looks like a Bitcoin card, and it all lights up as well. So you just do that right in front of the person. You're like, oh, you
Oh,
do
cool.
accept Bitcoin.
Yeah,
Okay, thanks. Cheers, bye. And just walk out.
yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
whatever.
yeah, yeah.
We're in touch points wherever I go.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. Yeah. No, I mean that's great because as I mentioned at the start, it all starts with merchants. Like that's where we need to focus the energy on, and not just merchants who are excited about maybe a couple more Bitcoiners coming into their bar or their coffee shop. Merchants that actually understand that they have to make a balance sheet decision. And if we can do that, the more of those we can do, we all win.
Yeah, exactly. All right, John, where can people come and find you? And if there's, I mean, are you looking to bolster the team? If anyone's out there thinking, I could add some value here.
We're not hiring right now, but I would still say absolutely, like shoot us an email and send in a resume if you want. I keep everything on file, and I keep them all like kind of folder categorized away for future. But if people want to check us out, just obviously go to the website zappright.com. The app itself is app.zappright.com. You can just sign up for a free 30-day trial and check it out. Other than that, at Zappright app on Twitter, and I'm just John underscore Zappright, JOHN_Zappright on Twitter. Yeah, hit me up, ask me anything at all. I'd be happy to, chat about, building a Bitcoin business and getting started in meetup world and everything, and helping out on the local scene, because I think that's really important.
Awesome, mate. So hoping to see you in Madeira for the conference, 1st to 3rd of March.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Looking forward to that. Like really excited about that actually. Yeah. That's going to be great. Yeah.
Are you
Yeah.
getting out there beforehand at all? Or are you just
Yeah. I'm looking at that actually. Yeah. So, one of the things that I got really into in Canada when I lived there was mountain biking. And Madeira is actually known for some great mountain biking. I think they run some of the cross country races there, the World Cup races and stuff there as well. And so it's always been on my radar as a place to go mountain biking. So I think I'll take an extended holiday over there around the conference for sure.
All right, man. Well, look forward to seeing you, and take care. And yeah, thank you for everything you're doing for building in Bitcoin.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for being a user, and appreciate it a lot.
See you, man.